The Moonlight Princess. Long ago, in Japan, there lived an old bamboo cutter. He was poor and he was sad, for he and his wife had never had a child of their own. Every morning he left his house and went into the woods, searching for the spot where the plumes of bamboo waved their feathery leaves against the sky. He would cut down the bamboo canes and carry them home, where he and his wife would carve furniture from the wood and make a little money by selling it at market. One morning, as he set to work cutting down a clump of bamboo, the woods were suddenly flooded with a bright, soft light, as if the full moon had just risen. Looking up in astonishment, the old man saw that the brilliant light was streaming from just one bamboo stem. Filled with wonder, he dropped his knife and went towards the light. There, in the green hollow of the stem, was a tiny girl only 3 inches high, and her face was more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. "We have always longed for a child," thought the old man. "Perhaps this one has been sent to us from the heavens as our very own." He cradled the girl in his hands and carried her back to his wife. The old man and his wife were happy from that moment on. All their love was given to the little child, and from time to time the old man found nuggets of gold tucked away in the notches of the bamboo in the forest around their home. When he hewed down the bamboo stems and split them open, he found them stuffed with precious stones. Soon the old couple were rich beyond their wildest dreams. After 3 months, the bamboo child had miraculously become a full-grown girl, as tall now as any adult. She still looked as if she were made of light, and she filled the house with her moonlit glow even in the darkest of night. The old man and his wife tied up her hair and dressed her in beautiful kimonos. "She is not of this world," they whispered to each other, and they placed her behind screens like a Japanese princess. When it came to the naming of their newfound child, the old couple called in a celebrated name-giver, and he gave her the name of Princess Moonlight. "Her body gives out so much light," he said, "she might have been the daughter of the moon god." Everyone who came to the naming ceremony declared they had never seen anyone so lovely, and the fame of her beauty spread far and wide. Suitors from across the land came to the house in the hope of winning her hand, but the old man sent them away, for the princess declared she had no desire to marry. So the men made little holes in the fence in the hope of catching a glimpse of the Moonlight Princess. Some wearied and went home, but 5 princes were determined to make her their own. They stood outside in the burning sun and in floods of rain. Sometimes they wrote letters to the princess, but no answer ever came back. They waited all winter, through frost and snow, through the gentle warmth of spring and into summer. At last, the bamboo cutter came out to speak to them. "Tell the princess of the gentleness of our love," they begged. "Tell her how long we have waited, sleepless and roofless, without food or rest, in the hope of winning her." The old man took pity on the faithful suitors. "What will you do when your mother and I are dead and gone?" he said to the Moonlight Princess. "At least consider these 5 princes. See if there is one amongst them who you could choose." "There is nothing I would not do for you," replied the Moonlight Princess, "but I must test their love further before I can agree to speak to them." That night the bamboo cutter went out to meet the 5 princes and to tell them of the test. The first prince's quest was to find the stone bowl belonging to the Buddha in India. The second prince was to go to the mountain of Horai in the eastern sea. From there he had to bring back a gold and silver branch from the tree that grows on its summit, which bears white jewels on its tips. The third prince was to go to China and search for the fire rat and bring her its skin. The fourth prince was told to search for the dragon that bore the rainbow stone. And the fifth prince was to find the cowrie shell born from a swallow. Now, the first prince was afraid to go all the way to India. Instead, he went to a nearby temple and took a stone bowl from the altar. He then wrapped it in a cloth of gold and waited patiently for 3 years before bringing it to the old man. When the princess unwrapped the bowl, she waited for it to make the room shine with light. And when it failed to shine at all, she knew it for a trick and refused the prince. He returned home, having lost all hope of winning the princess. The second prince left home for Mount Horai, but everyone he met told him the place was only a fable. So he shut himself away on an island with 6 skilled goldsmiths to make a gold and silver branch bearing white jewels for fruit. When at last it was finished, he brought it to the old man, who gave it to the princess, who sighed and said that this gift too was a fake. The third prince had a friend in China, so he wrote asking for the skin of the fire rat, promising any amount of money for it. When at last he received it, he put it carefully in a box and sent it to the princess. She put the skin to the test by lighting a fire and placing the skin in the bluest, hottest part of the flame, where it crackled and burned at once. She knew then that the third prince had also failed in his quest. The fourth never intended to search for the dragon. He sent his servants instead. They treated the request as a chance for time away, while the prince, thinking he could not fail, prepared his house for the princess. A year passed in waiting, and still his men did not return with the rainbow stone, so the prince was forced to set out on the quest himself. He set sail in his ship, but a great storm blew him out to sea. After many months, weary and anxious, he felt his love for the princess turn to anger. He decided never to go near her again. The fifth prince failed even sooner than the rest. As soon as he heard the news of his task, he decided it was impossible. He went home and put the princess out of his mind. By this time, the fame of Princess Moonlight's beauty had reached the ears of the emperor himself. He came to the house and immediately fell deeply in love. "Come to the court," he begged her. "I cannot," she replied. "I would turn into a shadow," and even as she spoke, she began to lose her form. "I will promise to leave you free then," said the emperor. He said goodbye, for it was time for him to return to the royal palace, but he left with a sad heart, and spent much of his time writing poems telling the princess of his love and devotion. After the emperor left, the old man noticed the princess began to spend her nights sitting on the balcony, gazing at the moon. One night, the old man found her weeping as if her heart was broken. "What's wrong?" he asked her. "I don't belong to this world," she confessed. "I come from the moon, and my time on earth will soon be over. 10 nights from now, my people will come for me. But I have forgotten the moon world where I once belonged. I'm weeping to think of leaving the home where I've been so happy for so long." The old man and his wife were distraught at the thought of losing their foster daughter, so they wrote to the emperor to see if there was anything he could do. In reply, he sent 2,000 brave warriors to protect the princess. On the 10th night, 1,000 stood guard on the roof, and another 1,000 kept watch around the house. The old man gave orders that no one was to sleep. Everyone in the house had to be ready to fight for the princess. "Even the Emperor will be powerless against my people," said the princess. "If I could do as I would like, I would stay with you through your old age, in gratitude for the love and kindness you have shown me all my earthly life." The night wore on. The yellow harvest moon rose high, flooding the world with golden light. The bamboo and the pine forests lay silent, and at the first light of dawn all hoped the danger had passed. Suddenly the watchers saw a cloud billowing out from around the moon, and as they looked, the cloud began to roll towards the earth. In the middle of the cloud stood a flying chariot, and in the chariot was a band of luminous beings. One stepped out. He looked like a king, and, poised in the air, he called for the old man to come out. "Thank you for taking care of the Moonchild," he said. "We sent her down to you for protection while we waged celestial war. In return for her safety, we sent you wealth. We put gold and jewels in the bamboo for you to find. But the war is over, and the time has come for her to return. Now, Princess Moonlight, come out from the house." At his words, the screens of her room slid open, and there stood the princess, shining and radiant. The king led her out and placed her in the chariot. She looked back and called out to the old man and the old woman, "I don't want to leave you. If I could stay, I would. Think of me when you look at the moon." And then she took off her shawl and gave it to them. "Here is something to remember me by," she said. One of the moon beings in the chariot held up a coat of wings and a phial, full of the elixir of life. The princess swallowed a little, and tried to give the rest to the old man and his wife, but another moon being stepped in front of her and stopped her. Just before the robe of wings was placed on her shoulders, the Moonlight Princess held up her hands. "Wait," she said, "I must not forget to—" Just before the robe of wings was placed on her shoulders, the Moonlight Princess held up her hands. "Wait," she said, "I must not forget the Emperor. I must write to him to say goodbye." She placed the phial of the elixir of life in the letter, and asked the old man to give it to the Emperor. A moment later, the chariot began to roll towards the moon, as the old man and his wife gazed after the princess. The dawn broke, and in the light of day, the moon chariot was lost amongst the clouds. Princess Moonlight's letter was taken to the palace. The Emperor was too afraid to touch the elixir of life, so he sent it to the top of the most sacred mountain in the land, Mount Fuji. There it was burned on the summit at sunrise, and to this day there is smoke rising from the top of Mount Fuji to the clouds above.